Good
morning. So in our few days together, we've covered the trainings that we need to engage in order to progress through the various stages of training, stages of mental development, in order to arise as Buddhas. So firstly recognizing the great opportunity that this rebirth brings, but developing a sense of urgency through recognizing its impermanence. One needs to reflect deeply on the sufferings of samsara, both the lower realms and especially those of the higher realms, coming to develop both a deep wariness for cyclic existence and a dominant aversion or rejection even for the afflictions, the cause of our suffering, thereby giving rise to definite emergence. Then, with that mind well established, which comes about independence on looking at one's own situation primarily, one is then ideally suited to lift one's gaze and take into account all those around you and progressively take into account all sentient beings, recognizing that at a fundamental level, there is no difference between us. None of us want to suffer. We all want to be happy. None of us rejoice when we encounter problems and difficulties. We all want to abide in lasting happiness. So here one is already, through the mind of definite emergence, given rise to a determination. I want to attain lasting happiness. I want to gain freedom from suffering. So these minds we now express towards all beings, ourselves and all beings. And these are the expressions of the minds of love and compassion. May all beings abide in lasting happiness, love, free from all forms of suffering and difficulty, compassion. Meditating on this again and again so that it arises in such a powerful and sustained manner that one is now no longer satisfied with this mere wish. It's powerful and it's dominant within, but it is still just a mere wish. Now one determines, I take this as my responsibility. It's not merely enough that I want my mother sentient beings to abide in lasting happiness. It's actually my responsibility that they are led to attain such a state. Here one generates the wholehearted resolve. But recognizing that one oneself is still bound in samsara, one therefore cannot lead others from experience, and moreover, when one considers the wide variety of karmic dispositions or karmic backgrounds that beings have and thereby their varying dispositions, how can one guide beings precisely? One has to become the most skilled of guides. Therefore, in order to benefit others, I am going to become a Buddha. Then one generates bodhicitta, meditates on this again and again so that it arises in an uncontrived manner. With the generation of bodhicitta, one recognizes that merely developing bodhicitta alone is an insufficient cause to fulfill one's desire to become a Buddha. One has to accumulate further causes, the 6 perfections. So whilst one is training, one engages in these 6 perfections. Whilst one's training one's bodhicitta, one already engages in these practices of generosity, of ethics, of patience, of joyous perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. And having trained well like this, repeatedly over a sustained period, gaining some experience of all these minds, one then is ready to enter through the gateway of those of immense fortune, to enter into the trainings of secret mantra. And there we looked at, firstly, one from a genuine teacher receives initiation into a practice, or one receives empowerment so that one is empowered to engage in practice. When one receives initiation, one accepts the vows of secret mantra, and one receives oral instructions, samayas. One recognizes then these vows and samayas have to be guarded well, kept properly. And one then comes to study how to train in the tantric practice, and thereby recognizing that one needs to engage in the 2 stages, and first the generation and completion stages. So this then is what we've looked at over our days together. Just to repeat then about the final part that we looked at, because it's just been most recent, that to enter into Tantra, one receives initiation or empowerment into Tantric practice from a genuine teacher. Then one, in that process, one receives vows and samayas, which need to be guarded in the same way that we guard our life. Then learn about the practice to engage in, and engage in the two stages of training, the generation, and then independence on completing this training in the generation stage, the completion stage. In the 12th verse, which we looked at yesterday afternoon, the first line refers to the classes, or mentions the classes of Tantra. So there are 4 different classes of Tantra, which one can train through in a progressive sequence, starting with Action Tantra, moving to Performance Tantra, Yoga Tantra, and Highest Yoga Tantra. So there is a difference in these, the method of training in these various classes of Tantra. And what we see at the end of the first line, the 2 stages, this specifically refers to, as was said, generation stage and completion stage. And those 2 stages are found in Highest Yoga Tantra. The earlier 2 levels of Tantra have a different method of training. So when it says 2 stages, it's referring to the 4th of the classes of Tantra, Highest Yoga Tantra. For the lower classes of Tantra, so those below the Highest Yoga, so the first 3 classes, one also needs to receive initiation, wherein one will receive vows and samayas, and these also then need to be guarded. So the process is the same. The difference comes in the practice itself. And again, the 2 stages refer specifically to Highest Yoga Tantra. Now we come to the final 2 verses. So this presents the dedication of merits accumulated, or can be expressed as prayer. So the 13th verse. Thus may the spiritual teachers who illuminate the noble path, and the spiritual friends who practice correctly, all have long life. Please inspire me to thoroughly pacify and eliminate the mass of outer and inner hindrances entirely. The first line. Thus may the spiritual teachers who illuminate the noble path. So the first word, thus, this is our connecting word to what has come previously. So this is referring to what has come just previously, which is the presentation on the parts of training of Secret Mantra, as well as the foundation, the parts of the sutra parts of training. So those are also what is meant by the noble path. And just to say as an aside, this word I've translated as noble, it's not the word we normally have translated as noble, which is for Arya being. So it's not the Arya path. It could be translated as the excellent path or the good path. So and here then one's dedication starts with those who teach or illuminate this noble path, our spiritual teachers. So this is who's being referenced, those who have taught us some or all of the trainings involved with both the sutra and tantric paths. And why is it called a noble or excellent path? Because this is the method by which one comes to gain freedom from suffering, eradicate one's afflictions, and can be of greatest benefit to others. And what one is praying for one's spiritual teachers, is then expressed at the end of the second line. All have long life. So one is dedicating merit for the long life of our teachers, of our spiritual teachers. The reflection that one should engage in before reciting a dedication prayer like this is to generate a genuine appreciation for one's spiritual teachers. And this is done through recalling what one reflected on at the beginning of our text in the first verse, where one reflected on the incredible qualities of one's spiritual teacher, and so the qualities in terms of his physical behavior, his speech, and mental qualities, as well as his incomparable kindness. And the kindness is seen through that he has attained his spiritual qualities over lifetimes. And these qualities that he has developed within himself weren't solely for his own betterment, but so that he could be of benefit to ourselves, to other beings such as ourselves. So he recognized in this way his great kindness, first his many qualities, then his great kindness, in the kindness is that he trained this long, not just for himself, but so that he can help others, such as ourselves. And it's through this expression of compassion that he is guiding ourselves and others. So here one feels a genuine sense of appreciation for one's spiritual teachers. And here the plural is explicitly used, so that the translator, I've used the plural because of Geshe's commentary, which is that one will have perhaps teachers that have been teaching various aspects of the path. Because the path has many aspects, and one may be trained in them by different teachers. So here it's quite possible that what one has learned about the complete and unmistaken paths that lead to accumulating the causes for excellent rebirth, that lead to the accumulation of the causes to gain your own liberation from suffering, and the accumulation of causes that will lead you to become a Buddha for the sake of others, as well as secret mantra. All of this comes about in dependence on the kindness of spiritual teachers who have an abundance of excellent qualities. And moreover, one recognizes that if it wasn't for one's spiritual teachers, all the benefit that the Dharma has brought into your life would not have come about. This interdependent relationship, all good qualities come about in dependence on interdependently, and a primary cause is our spiritual teacher. So with a recognition of the benefit that we've received, we express our appreciation by dedicating for their long life. And the final point is these expressions of verses, these expressions of appreciation, we should not direct solely to the teachers we have a Dharma connection with, but to all authentic teachers, whether ours or not, who teach the complete and unmistaken path to enlightenment. May they all have long lives. Look at the rest of the second line. And the spiritual friends who practice correctly. So here this refers to our companions in our training, because we are not independent beings. We are interdependent. For us to receive guidance and spiritual training, we require companions because of the wide number of causes that are required in order to receive teachings, to engage in teachings, and so forth. It is not a solitary path, and it's not a path solely of you and your teacher. It is the web of interdependency is far broader. So we need our spiritual companions with whom we are engaging in spiritual practice. And here, the prayer is explicitly, may we all have long life, but the implied meaning is, may we have a long life and thereby progress quickly, cultivating the complete and unmistaken paths within. Here then, we should also recall not just the spiritual teachers who are alive and teaching now in the world, but also this incredible lineage of teachers. So here in particular with this text, we can think of Lama Tsongkhapa, who composed this text, call to mind his incomparable qualities and call him to mind as a role model, as an inspiration. And then when we think of this spiritual friends, they were companions, the second line, there we can also be aware of this entire lineage over centuries that has kept these teachings alive, and thereby, in this distant times, between now and when this text was composed, we are able to engage in this text due to this unbroken lineage of great beings. So may all such practitioners abiding in the world have long life, and this generation of appreciation for the entire lineage that has kept their teachings alive to today. Final two lines, starting with, for Art in English, the fourth line, eliminates the mass of outer and inner hindrances or obstacles entirely. Here, one is making this prayer, or making this dedication in relation to both ourselves as well as our companions or our spiritual friends. May all the hindrances or obstacles that we encounter, may we, in the third line above, thoroughly pacify them. So here we can think of outer hindrances, such as conflict in the world. So conflict between nations, of course, this is a major impediment to spiritual development, as well as conflict between communities or expression of anger and hatred within homes. May beings gain freedom of this. May all of these be thoroughly pacified or completely pacified. And also obstacles such as illness, particular severe illness or life-threatening illness. May all such obstacles be pacified. And then also where the materially there are obstacles, may favorable conditions be acquired. Because if one is either impoverished or is struggling to feed one's family and so forth, or if one lacks the physical places where teachings can be given and meditation can be engaged in, may all such hindrances be overcome too. May they be thoroughly pacified. So the outer hindrances refers to our physical body and everything outside of that. The inner hindrances then refer to the afflictions in the mind of beings. May we come to thoroughly pacify these. These coarse afflictions which dominate us so, may we subdue them or pacify them, bring them to peace would be very literal. Instead of pacify, so bring them to peace. In other words, calm our mind, may we calm our minds so that these afflictions don't keep pulling us into the direction of non-virtue. So this then, we request inspiration to our Lama, Yidam and Buddhas. What is implicit in these last two lines is whilst one is making this prayer for inspiration to thoroughly pacify and eliminate the mass of outer and inner hindrances entirely, what is implicit is the way that one does this is by not only pacifying hindrances, but cultivating the causes that will serve to overwhelm them. So in other words, cultivating the causes that will lead to excellent outer conditions, such as good health, having a stable, peaceful home environment, sufficient financial security, to have a place where one can engage in the Dharma, and so forth. So the outer conditions, as well as inner conditions, that may, to overcome the hindrances, the inner hindrances, this too is done through cultivating the opposing ways of thinking. So we think here of minds such as love, compassion, wisdom, as well as the indispensable companions for all good qualities, mindfulness, vigilance, and conscientiousness. So these we are implicitly requesting inspiration to cultivate, because again, the way to overcome hindrances is through not only subduing hindrances, but through cultivating opposing minds, which is how we subdue the hindrances. So to summarize the verse then, one is making prayers that one's spiritual teachers who illuminate the excellent path, who illuminate the complete and unmistaken teachings, and not just presenting the knowledge, but are guiding us in cultivating this knowledge, may they have long lives. May they abide with beings, teaching them, guiding them. And also, may all the practitioners of the Dharma, so ourselves and our spiritual companions, may we also have long lives and utilize those lives well. So not merely to have a long life relaxing in this excellent rebirth, but to make good use of this life. And how to do so? By following precisely the advice that our teachers give us in the teachings, learning the meaning of what's being taught and following the guidance in how to cultivate those good qualities, cultivate the Dharma within. This is the purpose of myself and my spiritual companions to have a long life. May we do so, and to bring that about, the third and fourth line, may we eliminate and pacify completely all the outer and inner hindrances through cultivating the required outer excellent conditions and the inner good qualities, so as to overcome the inner hindrances, the afflictions. So that in summary is the 13th verse. There are several reasons why in our second line we are encouraged also to dedicate and pray for our spiritual friends. So just to say, as a translator, in this context, spiritual friends means like companions, as opposed to spiritual teachers. So the reason is, as already mentioned in terms of our spiritual friends, our companions, is because it's independent on each other that we can engage in the Dharma and we can grow spiritually. But moreover, the further reasons why to dedicate for each other's spiritual well-being and long lives is because it comes together with rejoicing in each other's endeavors, in each other's virtuous endeavors. And this is important to do because the minds such as competitiveness and jealousy are afflictions. These hinder us. Why be jealous of those who are progressing towards happiness? Why be competing with those who are progressing towards liberation? This should be our heart wish, wanting others to be happy. So here, by dedicating for them, in effect, one is rejoicing in their virtuous endeavors and wanting them to be ever more successful. And to make this prayer particularly vast, it's important that these first two lines are expressed to both one's own spiritual teachers, as well as all genuine spiritual teachers throughout the world who are teaching the complete and unmistaken path. As well as the second line, not just ourselves and our own spiritual friends, but all practitioners who are striving to cultivate the good qualities within. We should dedicate to all of them so that their outer and inner hindrances are completely eliminated through quickly developing all required inner good, excellent conditions as well as outer conditions. So this is really important. It makes our dedication far vaster and is much more in line with the motivation of the Bodhisattva. The rejoicing in the virtue of others is really of immense importance and all too often overlooked. And rejoicing with real sincerity, really being happy in their success. So to illuminate this, there's a story from the Buddha. He was invited, together with his large retinue of many monks, was invited to partake in a meal or invited by a king. On the outskirts of the grounds where the Buddha and the monks were receiving this feast were beggars. If the beggars would have been there hopeful for some leftovers later. But one beggar in particular, she looked at what was happening and she thought, oh, I'm impoverished. I so wish I could give, but I can't. I don't even have for myself, let alone to give. But our king, he is so fortunate. He has the opportunity to offer to the Buddha as well as this large number of monks. The king, on the other hand, his motivation was a bit mixed. Of course, he wanted to offer to the Buddha and all these monks, but there was a part of his motivation which was, I want to offer to such an esteemed and large community because I will get a good reputation. Amongst my peers, the other princes and kings in the area, I will be known as someone of not only great generosity, but great wealth. This is fantastic. So here the king is thinking, his motivation is very mixed with also these worldly thoughts about reputation, what others will think about him. But he knew this wasn't an ideal motivation, so he tried to hide it. And the way he tried to hide it was by requesting, at the end of the meal, he requested the Buddha to please dedicate the merit accumulated, and to dedicate it to the person who had created the most merit from this offering. So it was clear he thought that was going to be himself. But he was trying to mask his excitement at this by making this request to the Buddha. But much to his shock, when the Buddha dedicated all this merit accumulated to the person who had created the most merit from the offering, he didn't mention the king's name, he mentioned some beggar's name. So he asked, the king then asked the Buddha, how is this possible? Not in such a direct manner, but he was really shocked. So he wanted to know, why was this merit not dedicated to me and this flourishing of my kingdom? How is this possible? So sorry, the person who asked the question wasn't the king. I guess he was masking his shock, but someone else asked the Buddha the question, how is this possible? And the Buddha replied, it's not that the king didn't make merit, he certainly did, but not nearly as much as that beggar did, because the beggar had a motivation based in sincere faith or trust, and rejoiced from her heart in the good of others, the good that others were doing. So she was not at all, had no thought about her own reputation or her receiving anything in return, but was sincerely happy for others. And the meaning here, though, is that it's important to rejoice in the virtue you yourself accumulate, because this inspires you to continue to do so. And it's important to rejoice in the virtue that others accumulate, because this connects you to them, and it serves to guard your mind from competing or being jealous with others. Now we come to the final verse, and I'm just going to change 3 words, maybe more in line with what Geshe has just said. So just changing from my to our. In all our lives, may we never separate from the perfect lamas and experience the magnificent Dharma. By thoroughly perfecting the excellent qualities of the paths and grounds, may we quickly achieve the state of Vajradhara. Here one comes to dedicate, and one's dedicating the merit that one oneself has accumulated, and one accumulated in this life. But one is dedicating the merit for so that it ripens in lives beyond this. So in the first 2 lines, or the first line first, in all our lives may, so now first in terms of the first person, in all my lives may I never separate from the perfect lamas. So here one is now firstly dedicating that the merit that I've accumulated that has all been accumulated in dependence on the kindness and the skill or the qualities of my Lama, may I never be separated from him, not in this or any future life. And in every life beyond this. So let's erase what I've just said. So starting again. So looking at the first line and then the second line, but in terms of first person. So one's dedicating all one's merit so what I'm going to say now is implied. It's not here, but it's implied. That I'll dedicate all this merit so that in whatever remains of this life, may I never be separated from my perfect lamas, those who, through their guidance, through their good qualities and their compassion, who have guided me to create this merit, I dedicate it so that I am never separated from them in this life. And that, now the second line, I continue to receive their teachings and apply myself to cultivate those teachings within. So this is then about this life. And then what's explicit in the verse is one dedicates the merit that one has created so that in every life beyond this, our Lama, independent on whom this merit was created, I dedicate so that I meet him at a young age, recognize him as an authentic teacher, and receive teachings, hearing and reflecting on those teachings on the stages of the path to enlightenment, striving throughout each and every life under his care and guidance to cultivate the paths of the Dharma within. Therefore, when reciting these first 2 lines, one makes this prayer in relation to both this and lives to come. So the verse explicitly talks about future lives, but one should understand it implies this life as well. And the 2 aspects of both never being separated from one's teacher, but also utilizing the opportunity of being with one's teacher to the fullest extent. And how is that done? Through hearing teachings repeatedly and continuously engaging, reflecting, and meditating on them so as to cultivate the stages of the path within. Then the 3rd and 4th lines, by thoroughly perfecting the excellent qualities of the paths and grounds. So here one's aspiration is in relation to, may I quickly generate bodhicitta and thereby enter into the bodhisattva path of accumulation, and thereby, having attained these excellent qualities, quickly progress from the path of accumulation to that of preparation, path of seeing, the path of meditation, and do so by training in both sutra and tantra, and thereby quickly attain the final path, the path of no more training, arising in the state of, or as in the state of Vajradhara. Summarize the 14th verse then. All the virtue that has been accumulated both now and previously, I dedicate so that I am never separated from my perfect spiritual teachers, not in this life or any future life. From now until the point when I eventually arise in the enlightened state of a Buddha, may I always be with my spiritual teachers, and not merely in their presence, but utilizing their very purpose, which is to teach. And may I not merely accumulate knowledge, but strive to cultivate that knowledge in the way that I am being guided. And this is the method by which I'll collect, or accumulate rather, the excellent qualities of the paths and grounds, and eventually arise as a Buddha. So the reason for the term quickly in the final line is when one generates wholehearted resolve, one has been meditating long on love and compassion, and has come, and before that, one has meditated long on the sufferings of samsara. So one has now, when one develops wholehearted resolve, has recognized the great need in our world, need for beings to be guided and to accumulate the causes that will lead to happiness and to avoid the causes that will lead for suffering. There's a sense of urgency that led to the development of the wholehearted resolve. And that sense of urgency was further developed with the generation of bodhicitta. When one has made that commitment, I have to become a Buddha for the sake of others, there is a deep sense of urgency. There cannot be a delay. I need to do this as quickly as possible. And where we can imagine this in our own world is if there is a disaster somewhere and there are aid workers, both from the government as well as charities, and they are going to rush into the disaster area to help because they know they are needed, and they are needed right now. You're not going to imagine them driving along a long path, taking many tea breaks, relaxing, chatting to their friends. There will be a sense of urgency. I'm needed, and I'm needed now. Any delay means people will suffer more. That is the sense of urgency that aid workers have in their work. There certainly is a sense of urgency that bodhisattvas have. They recognize the deep need that beings have for guidance, and therefore they are striving to quickly achieve the state of Ajadata. So now as we come to our final conclusion, generate a recognition that in our time together, each of us have accumulated an extensive amount of merit. How so? By hearing the teachings, and whilst hearing, thinking about their meaning. As well as, so these are all virtuous minds we are creating, and that is the creation of merit. As to, through the other activities such as the meditations and so forth, so much merit has been created. And this has come about independent on so many factors. So firstly, we think of the great master, Lama Tsongkhapa, who composed this very short text, but with such deep meaning. So through the excellent qualities that he developed, and his kindness as shown through his expression of those qualities in the composition of texts such as this, as well as the great number of beings who have kept these teachings alive by cultivating them in their hearts over these millennia, and thereby we have come into contact with it now. So thereby rejoice in the merit that you have accumulated, rejoice in the kindness of the others who have brought it to the point that we could meet it now, all these many centuries later. And also rejoice in the kindness of all the Buddhas and great beings throughout the worlds who are benefiting. And a particular purpose of rejoicing in this way is through recognizing the benefit that one has received here and appreciating the benefit that will flow forward for oneself, generate the wish, may such opportunities as these, may I have access to them in the future. May there be no hindrances for me embracing them. May I have many such opportunities and embrace them all. So this is important. This is how we create the causes to be able to come together again and again and continue our spiritual journey. Dedicate this virtue so that one continues throughout this and future lives to be under the direct care of one's spiritual teachers, and in every future life to meet them and to receive guidance and teachings from them, and to train precisely throughout this and future lives in the way guided, so that one quickly can develop bodhicitta and stand amongst one's fellow bodhisattvas. For us to have had this time together is not something that one wills into existence. It's not merely through one deciding, I will come here, that we have this opportunity together. It's good to be aware of the web of interdependency that is required for us to spend this time together. So just looking at the coarsest of conditions that are required, the most obvious. Firstly, there needs to have been a public holiday. One needs to have life circumstances that one can enjoy the public holiday as opposed to having to be looking after others or working and so forth. So there are these kind of obvious causes. There are also the many unseen causes that have propelled you to have found out about this retreat, and the many unseen causes that led you to having an interest and a sufficient interest that you booked the course. So there are many things required for us to come together. And moreover, that we have created virtue together. I've created a lot of merit. I want to say thank you, because if you hadn't come, I would have no one to talk to. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to create merit. And I know by you listening to the classes and engaging in the meditations of Venerable Tsepel, you've also accumulated extensive merit. So this is the interdependency of how we together walk towards enlightenment. And moreover, it's not just those of us in this room. There are the many who outside of this room, have made this possible. There are those who work at the Dharma Center. There are those who donate and contribute in differing ways to the Dharma Center. And of those, there are those who are doing it now, and those who have done it over decades, who have done so decades previously, but their endeavors, their donations, their work has led to this moment being possible. So there we see a wider connection, interdependent connection. And this is how, again, we create merit, independence on the kindness of each other. And this is how we together will walk towards enlightenment. So this merit that has been accumulated, we can't observe it, we cannot see it, we cannot see this large mountain of merit that's been accumulated, because it abides on our continuum. But the way to understand it is that this merit, because of the way it will be dedicated, it will remain propelling us forward, as if we were sitting in a powerful sports car, propelling us forward to the attainment of our enlightenment. And whilst each of us are striving for our enlightenment, we will be progressing together. This is how our interdependent relationships connect us. So I want to say, from my heart, a deep thank you to all of you, because again, it's only dependence on so many causes that we could come together. So thank you. Furthermore, in our time together, I've had a lot to say, and pretty much everything I've said, the sound has appeared to your ears, but no meaning. So for what I have to share, my knowledge and the experience I've gained based on that knowledge, there needs to be someone in between, an interpreter, to relay that. Without the interpreter, I would just be making, as far as you're concerned, just making sound, just noise. And likewise, when you ask questions, for me, I just hear sound. I really don't understand the English that well, so it's just sound, and maybe you're not even talking English. So again, for me to understand your questions, I need the interpreter. And then if we ask ourselves, so we see here this interdependence of the three groups, the teacher, the students, and the interpreter. And if we ask ourselves, which is more important? The truth is, none is more important. All three are required. And likewise, it's such a huge web of causes required to bring us together. So this is the intricacy of interdependent relationships.
Oh, yeah,
Then thank you. Thank you all very much.